Welcome to the World Economic Forum. We're here with John Ridding, Chief Executive of the Financial Times. John, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. You've been a long-time friend, supporter, partner in many respects. So we're launching this week the Make Time for Money campaign here at the World Economic Forum. And John is going to start the interview and a series of initiatives around the world as we're going to reach 1 billion people with this campaign. Now, it's a big, audacious goal. We're launching it on Thursday with the Lord Mayor of London, Gallup, and a number of other key stakeholders like Oliver Wyman. So I'm going to ask John to talk about some of the key aspects around the Make Time for Money week. And the first question I have, John, for you, when it comes to Make Time for Money, what appeals to you about it as a business leader, as a CEO of the Financial Times? Why is it even necessary? And what do you see as the benefits of such an initiative?
Well, firstly, thank you, Daniel. And audacious is the word. He's here in Davos without a coat. That's how he rolls. Well, I think we take the Financial Times and myself personally take the issue of financial literacy very seriously. And any campaign that can raise awareness and put a focus on this key issue, a key issue within companies, but also for society more generally, is a good cause.
Beautiful. The FT is doing some amazing things around financial literacy. Could you tell us a little about that work? Because we really want to elevate that. We want to get behind it as well. And we feel collaboration is a new competitive advantage. If we can collaborate, we can achieve a lot more than we could do alone.
Well, we think business has an opportunity and a responsibility to really work on financial literacy for their own staff and business, but also for society more generally. So internally, we have a series of workshops, we have programs, we have our own journalists providing information to our staff. We have workshops about how to handle inflation, the cost of living crisis, all these important issues. But externally, there's a huge need. Financial literacy and inclusion is one of the biggest challenges we face. There are social groups who are excluded from opportunities. It's fundamental for fairness and equality of opportunity. So we launched the Financial Literacy and Inclusion campaign a couple of years ago, seed funded by the FT, raising funds from outside to really work with the young, women, ethnic minorities to try and increase their financial education and literacy and address that problem of exclusion.
Why now? Because we're in an interesting period right now. World Economic Forum is starting to convene. This is the first gathering after a few years where really it wasn't convening the kind of people that it was before. Why is the time now to do something like this?
Well, it's always been important, financial literacy, but I think in recent years it's become urgent. And I think that's partly due to macro factors. We've seen the rise of inflation. We've seen the cost of living crisis. We've seen the energy price rises. So I think it's become an increasingly urgent and complex issue for individuals to manage. At the same time, we've seen the issues around social divisions, social exclusion. So I think on all of those fronts, this has moved from important to urgent.
When it comes to endorsing the campaign, you very kindly agreed to endorse it and you very kindly got behind it. How do you think we reach 1 billion people on the planet to be able to achieve that? What would be your advice?
Well, one of the good things about recent changes is social media is a great way of projecting, so we can use social media to really put that message across. And I do think business increasingly recognises the responsibility. So if we can kind of get business rallied around this cause, as the FT is and you are, I think we can get there.
And I think the employer is exactly the right way. As we've seen the Edelman Trust Index, where trust is greatest between employer and employee. And I think that's a great way for us to reach as many people as possible. Tell us your thoughts about the role of business when it comes to financial inclusion and helping improve employees' financial health.
Well, I think business often talks a big game about social issues. I think they have to walk the talk. We try. We have to, as the Financial Times, sort of understand and report best practice. We also have to live it. I think business has an opportunity and a responsibility to tackle this issue, and that's certainly what we're doing at the FT.
Yeah, you're doing an amazing job, and thank you for all your support. What's your experience when you're seeing across organizations more generally around financial literacy, inclusion and wellness, especially with the cost of living crisis? My question is really, when you look at what's happening in the world today, cost of living seems to be such a predominant topic, but a lot of people don't know how to budget. They don't know how to save. And part of what we're doing is putting out a 10-point plan of recommendations of people to look at following upon. When you think about your own journey and it comes to money, how did you learn about money? Was it through your family? Was it through friends?
Yeah.
And how did you get educated? Because Rishi Sunak just announced this whole initiative around maths and encouraging kids to learn maths up to the age of 18.
Yeah.
So what was your experience, Ryan? How do you think we can connect with kids as well as all ages?
So I think to your first point, it's got to be practical.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is not about theory, it's about practical stuff. And it's reaching them in the way they want to be reached on social media. So at the FT, we reached out through TikTok. We've got to reach the sort of people who need it in the way that they want to get that information.
Them at the point that matters most.
Exactly. So it's relevant to them.
And yourself, how did you learn about money? That's a fascinating.
I think the key is we're probably between school and university, where I was doing part-time jobs and I was signed on the dole for a while. And just understanding when my money was going to run out and what would happen if it did. Look, I was fortunate. I always knew my parents were there if needed, but I think felt a sense of responsibility to be able to manage my own money.
And would you encourage both employers and employees to get signed up to the campaign, and why?
Totally. I think anything we can do to raise awareness and raise focus on this issue right here, right now. You mentioned earlier that the changes in the current economic context have really added urgency to this issue. I think we've seen so many statistics within businesses and society in general, the stress, the mental health issues, the crisis that's building around this. So the sooner we can raise awareness and act on this, the better.
And the last thing is the pledge. So we talked about the Ice Bucket Challenge and our steering committee and many organizations that I met here at Davos, including HSBC, Jack Hiddery that spun out his business from Google, to Citigroup's Jane Fraser. We're all talking about how do you get this to really go viral. One of the things we said is we actually get each person to pledge another person to share their story of how they connected with money, what it means to them.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to necessarily mention it now, but I'd like to reflect on a person you can pass on the challenge to share their story and get behind the campaign. Would you do that?
Yeah, I certainly would. And I totally agree with the approach of peer pressure. So all of my business colleagues, it could be you.
Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.